Okie dokie. I'm ready to do this. We are live streaming now.
There we go.
Yep. Hi, I'm Paul. This is my channel, Tales of SwordFall. I'm doing the live GM chat, and I'm with.
My name is Drake. I'm with Adventure on Demand. We're a tabletop transcription service.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's actually very cool. It's something that just being any kind of game master can push your life into fun, creative, self-starting ideas.
So what is a trans? Well, what is it? What do you do? It sounds really interesting.
Well, like tabletop transcriptions is something we started out doing as we're a two-person startup right now, and we just kind of started doing some games with friends and people in some comic book stores, and we would watch television shows and be like, that would be a really cool role-playing game or a one-shot module, and they're like, yeah, it would be, and so I would just sit down and stat map it all out and like, oh, well, these are the adversaries, act 1, 2, and 3, and I'd be the writing side, and my partner Jessica, she's a digital designer mainly, so she would do like the page design and all of that, and we would just be like, hey, we start giving to us to our friends, and they'd be like, this is really cool. Like, if we paid you, would you make a certain one? And it kind of took off. So people come to us with ideas, and we make role-playing games or tabletop modules or any kind of game really for them with digital design and any kind of publication or anything like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun.
All right. So tonight we have a subject of GMing and where to start. Sounds like you have a bunch of experience. I have a bunch of experience. I've been, uh, gaming for about 20 years, ever since I was a wee little kid. And, yeah, I've played quite a few systems, including, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, 5th, a lot of 5th, um, Vampire the Masquerade, some apocalypse system stuff, just things all over. What kind of experience do you have? Which it sounds like you have
Well,
quite a bit.
yeah, well, the same. Like I started out in high school a little late bloomer when it came to actual real role playing like that, and so I started with 3.5, but kind of shied away from fourth because we didn't like fourth very much. My friends and I were kind of like, nah, but we love fifth edition. Fifth edition is amazing, so I definitely have great times with homebrewing fifth edition. But I am a huge White Wolf fan as well. I like the Masquerade and the World of Darkness and Werewolf and Promethean, all of it. Like it's a very cool universe. I'm excited for fifth edition for that. And but like any kind of D20 game, I've played the variations of Star Trek, Star Wars. I just got the Farscape handbook last week from a
Oh,
game store.
fun.
I'm super excited about. It's a D20, just a big, SRD kind of supplement. So like I just love D20 games are a big specialty, but all comes down to everything.
Cool. So our first question of the night is: how do we start with DMing, GMing, whatever you want to call it, being the narrator? Um, I'll let you go first.
I'd say like a big thing about how to become like a good GM or a GM at all is to like talk to yourself and get used to just hearing yourself monologue and talk. A lot of people can get caught up in the self-consciousness of talking or talking in a quiet space, or if everyone's captivated by your voice, it can be kind of self-conscious and people are like, oh my god, they're all looking at me. Don't do that. Like it's cool. Like talk to them naturally. Talk to yourself. Like, if you're unsure about how you want something to plan out, like, and you have a 20-minute car drive, like talk to yourself the entire time. Don't listen to music. Just be like, okay, this is how it's going to go out. And like, practice NPC voices, and like that's a big thing a lot of people really love is like voices for your NPCs. Your mom said that you'd never amount to anything if you can't make them dumb voices, but she didn't know about Dungeons and Dragons. So,
Yep.
Make funny voices and like don't never feel stupid. That's just like I think a big thing is I always have fun and don't feel stupid because you're role playing. You can't feel stupid unless you let yourself feel stupid. So just don't let that self doubt ever come into your mind.
Yeah, I've literally had people come into a room and I'm talking in some voice because I'm like going through a character in my head where it's like, okay, what is this guy gonna sound like? Well, I'm gonna try to do a Vegeta-like voice because that's kind of how I feel like this character's gonna go, and so I'm like, talking to myself, and voices like, yes, I will pursue something, 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 and it's like, okay, and then somebody walks in and they're like, oh, you're talking in funny voices again. I'm like, yep, yeah, I am. Uh, where to start and how to start. Um, I don't know. There's a large percentage of people who are forced to stop. I was one of those. Friends were like, "Hey, you can read rules and understand them. Run the game for us." I was like, "Okay." And just sometimes you just need that initial push of people know that you can like tell a story,
Yeah,
and yeah, and they're like, "Okay, we're trusting you to tell a good story." And if you believe you can tell a story, usually people will just let you start running a game for you. Uh, you know, that's probably the worst advice I could probably give. Yeah, just start doing it. Um,
stat and rule wise, it's like I always like start with the player's handbook. If you know your player's handbook front and back, that's a great way to start. But like you don't have to know like and memorize the DMG or like any kind of storyteller's guide. You don't need to memorize those things. It's acceptable for the storyteller and the master to like dig through the books now and then while the characters are going through whatever they're doing, or if they're messing around with the town and going shopping, you can tone them out for 5 or 10 minutes while they're doing whatever it is they're doing and to set up what's going on. You don't have to have memorized the entire text of oh wow, the DMG says I have to be like this. Like
oh
I
yeah,
I had one girl who was like, I knew she was fixated and terrified by challenge ratings. And I'm like, listen, you don't need to be terrified by them. If they terrify you, just forget about them. You don't need them. Like, just get the monster out there, work with the stats, have the first game, like, make the mistakes.
it,
The
it
first pancake is never the greatest pancake, but it still tastes good.
yeah, it's always that first step that's the biggest hurdle. Like for me, uh, on this channel, you can hear me GM, and every once in a while, like we were in a market, and I was like, huh, the vendor can't remember how much their item actually is. They take out the player's handbook and look up the price, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't have everything memorized. Spears and javelins. I was trying to remember the maximum range on those the other day. Had to look that up. I mean, there's a lot of rules, and good on you if you can memorize all the intricate rules within any uh, handbook. I mean, I'm amazed at those people who can, but
Good luck until they change it another
yeah,
edition later.
yeah, they're like, oh hey, we did some edits on this, and it's not really this wordy anymore.
Phone, and it does this now. And like, oh, it's actually not. It's a range touch. It's not actually a range attack anymore.
Yeah,
Or like the stats that they change all the time. That's why like, I just memorizing things like that can be kind of futile. Memorizing the details about your players, that'll go a lot longer than you knowing the statistics. Like memorize their character names, know their names. That's a big one to
oh
start.
yeah,
It's like that's a huge DM connection. If your DM like knows your character's name, it's kind of like, oh, the teacher knows my name. Cool. Like,
yeah, oh yeah. I'm horrible at like just memorizing names in real life, and 9 out of 10 times I'll remember your character's name before I actually remember your name. So I do a lot of like organic group together things where I'm like, hey, I have this open game, just come to this place, join it, and for the love of me, I can't remember some people's real names, but when it comes to like cereal, I know that person, I know who they are, they know who they are. And even though it's a dude with a female elf name, yeah, I know them as that Well, by that name, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a big sign of, like you have the perception, like it kind of like, oh wow, this person like can remember my name. They can obviously run a story. It just kind of runs with it.
Yeah.
Like write it down as soon as they come in. Just like write it down on a cheat sheet. Be like, yeah, you.
Uh, yeah. Actually, that brings us to our next question, which is pretty awesome. Awesome segue, which I just ruined. Yeah. What are the major hurdles someone can expect when they first start GMing or narrating or whatever?
I'd say like the lack of preparedness in the right ways. Like, it's one thing to think, okay, so I've got all this organized and I've got all this written down and stuff, but if you don't have it in a format that you can easily follow or distribute through the story, like you should really, you know, write out your outline. Like there's a lot of prep work. Don't underdo the prep work. People can definitely just think, oh, I have a good story, I can run a game. Like, no, 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 no. Sure you can. Like, it
Yeah.
takes a lot more to do it than people realize. You have to like look up the NPC stats. You have to look up if you're going to give any items or any things. You have to look at those stats. And you have to just have an idea of the damages and like how they think, what the NPCs are doing, and what's the region like. You gotta. There's like hundreds of variables, and like so. I always use a cheat sheet, like some sort of DM tracking guide. You can just literally Google that, and there's hundreds of thousands of them for every kind of game. And it's some sort of like combat tracker that you can write down the stats of your party, like how they attack, what their initiative order is, and you can do the same thing and have those pre-written out for like, oh, the big bad stats and like the little minion stats or wild boars or any kind of thing. Like have encounter sheets pre-filled out with your baddies already, like their key stats filled out, because it saves time too, not having to go through the DMG or the monster manual. Like, oh yeah, hang on, I have to look up the giant spider stats. And like they said, don't like do the legwork before the party gets there. Like you expect them to do their legwork. They're supposed to have done their experience points and have their characters developed. So it's a big thing to you can say you can run a game, but it's a big thing to do the homework and actually run the game.
Yeah. I have to agree with you, but a little bit on a funner note, it's finding that balance between like enough prep and too much prep. Because
Oh yeah.
I am a solid believer that sometimes you have to surprise yourself when you're running a game to actually enjoy the game. So like random tables and stuff are really nice, but if you aren't familiar with like a monster manual and you're using a random table, it can get a little cumbersome. Like, oh yeah, I wasn't expecting my players suddenly to be fighting, dire goats. What? But I I think like for newer GMs, like trying like testing the waters with a pre-made module is probably one of the best ideas you could do. Just I mean,
And like one of the thin ones. Don't start with one of the books. Like they have the little paperback tiny ones.
yeah, a nice short one. I mean
Oh yeah,
the
those are
Dungeon
great.
Master Guild for 5e is full of them,
Oh
and
yeah,
some of them
everywhere.
are written really great. Some, uh,
So
yeah, but they're good. They're a good like structured story. Most of them have the 3 act structure going on. All these literary things that I think some people end up forgetting or throwing out the window because they're like, oh, my players are gonna ruin everything, and those people have given up. um,
yeah.
but it's I think that's another thing is just trying to get into a mindset where you're not listening to too many like jaded veterans. Where,
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't let your table get hijacked by someone talking about the good old days of second edition. Like we're not here playing second edition. We're here playing fifth edition.
or
So
or that one guy who's playing 5th edition who's like, nah, I really like Pathfinder way more. And it's like, well, then why aren't you playing Pathfinder?
there's a Pathfinder group on Saturday. Go play with the Pathfinder group.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's it's that's another thing too that a lot of DMs can not do, and like to not fall into, is to be a disciplinary when you need to. Don't be afraid to snap an order now and then if you have to command the table's attention. Like if they're not paying attention to you, that's not right. They should be paying attention to you, and at least a mild form of respect where they're listening to you in some capacity. Like don't feel bad that you have to bark at them to be like, hey, pay attention. I'm glad we giggled and laughed for 15 minutes about the funny joke, but let's get back to the table at hand so that we don't make the session run 45 minutes over,
Yeah.
or we, are arguing about the trap that's not really there. Like, don't be afraid to tell them no, or to be like, something else happens.
Yeah, or just moving everything along, being like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, this is nice. This is a nice tavern scene. It's awesome that, you're going to get some tail, but there's like 2 days of travel to get to, guys.
Hmm.
Let's start doing that.
Yeah, don't be afraid to nudge them along if you have to. Like, okay, so you all black out in the tavern. You wake up and you're on the wagon.
Yep.
Like, keep them moving. Like, you just like, they have to gently herd the cats. You can't
Yeah.
just
Oh
expect them
yeah.
to move because they won't.
I like being the head of the group is kind of like a fine tuning of being like not only the referee but also sometimes a group counselor too. It's
Hmm.
just like, okay guys, I know like you player wise aren't getting along with the choices that you just made, but it sounds like in character it's fine. So let's take a 5 minute break. Everyone like, go to the restroom, get a drink or whatever, and then we'll come back and just start going with it again. And hopefully, when people cool off and get back to the game, they'll actually start playing again.
Yeah, that's
Or
very true.
or then vice versa, where players totally get it along and they're having this like heated role play where their characters aren't, and then
Mm.
that floods over. That gets interesting too.
Yeah, it's just beware the party or the session hijackers.
Yeah.
It's great they're doing that, but like gently, creatively nudge that like compassion and fun into something else. Try to be like, oh yeah, well, it's great you're doing that. Like, see that they love that, but then like either work that into the story somehow, or push them very gently. Like, yeah, that's great. Do
Yeah.
this.
It's
Like,
it's that fine balance between taking charge of your game and not like totally railroading the group.
yeah, or dousing their passion, like for
Yeah.
whatever they're having fun with. Let them have as much fun as they want to have fun with, whatever.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
totally.
is block of sheep, then that's the cool story right now. But if not, mm-mm.
Yeah.
So,
Player agency is super important.
oh yeah, like it's kind of like being a camp counselor. You just constantly have to be
Yeah. And
like the cat
being
from the Addams Family.
I
Like,
I've
hey
actually
guys.
I've actually done the whole summer camp counselor thing, and that's wild. I rather just be like DMing a group of teens to adults. So, oh yeah. I mean, what are some other hurdles that we can think of? I mean, oh,
It's
we
like
already.
being
Oh,
don't
go
get
ahead.
stuck on the rules. Like like Gary Gygax always said, it's like the rules are guidelines. They're not ironwork. Like if a certain quote unquote rule doesn't work with the story that you're telling, then gray area around it. You don't have to follow the exact laws. They're not laws. They're just slight suggestions on how to tell a story.
Yeah,
Like you're the end all decision maker on this. If you don't like that, then don't include it. And then like don't be afraid to have, like I said, have fun, laugh at yourself. If you do something stupid, like that's okay. Keep running with it. They're probably not going to notice. Like don't harp yourself on a mistake if you land on one. Just take it in stride and keep on going.
oh
Because
yeah,
it's people picking at themselves because they're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And you're like, well, you did. Let's move on. It's very natural. I said a lot of times people don't even notice, and don't have a elaborate story planned. That'll always fail. because they're gonna be interested in a bag that flies around in the wind or some sort of wild animal that made a noise that you weren't going to mention, but you did, and now you instantly regret it because they're asking about it. The moment you have an elaborate story plan, your party is not going to follow that story.
Yeah, my favorite story about that is once I mentioned that this town was by a lake and a mayor had a boat. And for the next 2 hours, everyone was fixated on the boat, even though it had nothing to do with anything other than.
The mayor killed people and disposed of their bodies with that boat. I've seen it. I know that he does.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no, that mayor's boat, that's something. I'm like, I was just trying to show that he was opulent and owned a lot of like material things, guys.
Death
Why?
Canoe. Death Canoe 5, where the canoe's actually the hero.
Yeah.
That's exactly what can happen though too. Or like I said, you're at you're the first room of a dungeon that you've elaborately constructed, and the thief and the barbarian are fighting about a trap that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or, it's like it's not there, but you don't really want to tell them. Like, just tell them it's not there, and then just push them to the damn door. Because if you don't, they will sit there and argue for 45 minutes.
Or people tapping on all the walls to see if there's any secret doors. That's always a good one. It's like, I'm gonna hit this stone wall. You hit a stone wall. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna hit the next one. They keep doing that, but eventually just make one of them a trap. Because
or make one that like goes to a secret broom closet. Woo. Sometimes like just learning how to throw something toward your players and just make their actions feel like that much more special. It's like, oh yeah, you finally found a secret door in a room, and they're like, yay! What's in it? And it's like, huh?
There's cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
Potions, stain be gone, a thistle broom, a really tired looking dry mop, and a sponge.
And then you get your chemistry major friend going, I can make a bomb out of that. It's like, oh, okay.
Bomb that can remove stains, but nothing else. Kind of a cool bomb. You can probably sell it to a tailor or two.
Yeah.
You just gotta roll with stuff like that, If they want to go for something, then you just gotta keep be like, okay, you just don't be afraid to say no to them if it goes against your story. Just be like, put a twist on it, Shyamalan that.
But also don't be afraid to say yes either, which is contradictory to just what we said. Yes to the good things, no to the things that will just totally ruin everything. I think it's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the silly things like that can be a pitfall too, is like dealing with new players that are overly silly about role playing.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know. I always find the silliest players to be like people who are closest to me, because they're not like exactly taking you or the game seriously, and they're there to like support you. But yeah, that's always been my experience.
Yeah, it does happen. I have a couple friends that are like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, now and then, like, if I've run a couple public games and stuff, and like if you do games in comic book stores or gaming stores, you'll eventually run into like an energetic, do-gooding Jar Jar Binks kind of person that is happy and is great with their life, but it's just really comedic, and you're not used to them, so it takes a lot to not find them irritating.
Yeah.
Because like you and I with our friends, we know they're not irritating, but to people on the outside, they're like, "Wow, this person needs to just shut up and go away." And like so, as a DM, you kind of we're talking about, you have to be that referee too, and you have to be like, "Okay, so I'm gonna again just I'm gonna pivot your positive energy about the monologue on the horse saddles and how elaborate your amazing outfit is, and we're gonna push that into the storyline before you drive everyone crazy."
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, just expect all sorts of players and all sorts of like characters from them. Like it's so easy to think everybody's gonna like play that dark brooding, like person with no family who is, going from town to town, and, just so grimdark because it's a cliche. And, every once in a while I like playing that, like, well-adjusted, like, hunter who has a job and a like family and a mom and dad who's still alive and six brothers and sisters. And sometimes, some people who are running games are like, wow, I suddenly have so many NPCs.
Well, that's it's all about who you know as opposed to like.
Yeah. Well,
But like
oh,
definitely, I was just no. It's like characters are like you have to like make room for all of them, but you definitely have to make sure that some of the story archetypes can fit them. It's great to make a story around like three big classes that usually always go around. Like you usually have your caster, you usually have your damage sponge, and then you have like your DPS or your inspirational kind of person who sits in the background. So
yeah.
it's fun to adjust for those and make sure everyone has a slice of the table. And then as the DM too, like you can make a call as to what is and isn't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at the Unearthed Arcana and stuff like that. If you like some of those things, but you think that's OP, then say, yeah, you can have that, but you can't have this.
Yeah, exactly. Um, especially some of the newer, untested Unearthed Arcana. Some of that gets a
Hmm.
little crazy.
Yeah,
Or
that comes with waivers for a reason.
oh yeah, or somebody finds like stuff off the D&D wiki and they're like, "Hey, can I have this? Let me let me read through that
Loaded
first." And
that. If it has wizards on it, it might be okay, but
yeah, the wild stuff on the internet sometimes is a little crazy. Um, right now, I'm running a campaign, and basically, one of my players I really trust and I know makes like good decisions was like, "Hey, I found this race off of X website. Can I use it?" I look it over. I'm like, "That is stupid, and I love it, and you can do it." It was basically a shape shifting what are Warforge, basically a transformer, and I was just like, "Yes, you can do that. That is crazy, and let's see what you do with it."
oh
And
yeah,
every once in a while, you can find that player who will amaze you every time. And
I'm totally one of those
huh?
players. I'm totally one of those players.
Yeah,
Like I go through old Dragon magazines. I go through like the most obscure, random places to try to find like new races and like just weird classes that are compatible with stuff. And I'm like, hey, I want to be this. You said open D20, so you open that door. I don't like. As soon as someone says like open something or other, I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I'm gonna make you rue the day. You're
yeah,
gonna hate me, but it's gonna be fun. I play
yeah.
the like, I play the charismatic characters that make you hate your life as a DM.
Oh no, I love charismatic characters. I mean, so another game I'm like running so many games right now. I have this charismatic bard. He's at level 1 right now, but so far he's ended up avoiding at least 4 conflicts because he was like, I'm gonna stare this guy down who's gonna try to mug me now. I'm like, okay, roll intimidation. Let's see where this takes us. And each and every time, this he somehow has rolled like in the higher numbers, and with his modifier, it's like been 20, 21, 23, and I'm like, that
Damn.
works. That is
Yeah.
awesome that you figured out a way that you're gonna avoid combat. And I think as a person running a game, sometimes you just need to like look at it from a standpoint of, hey, my player just thought outside of the box, and somehow they should be rewarded for that instead of going the same route of like,
Oh yeah.
see the dude who's menacing, kill the dude who's menacing. you know?
Yeah, like definitely, all roles should have a reward.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
if the party doesn't have a damage sponge, then don't expect them to be able to handle like a high dungeon situation. Like, change your plan so they can be sneaky. And if they are successfully espionage, then give them experience points for it because they did those good rolls.
Oh, yeah.
Who's
Um,
talking to you? The mic.
Sounds like you had some automated system listen to you.
You're talking about Google. I wasn't talking to you.
Yeah, that's why I have that feature like kind of turned off because it too many times it's searched for something totally random that I've said in the past. Anyways, back on
Like,
subject.
my kids have Alexa, and they changed her command word to be computer because you can do that with Alexa currently.
Oh,
And like just computer though, like from Star Trek. So it's super cool and super fun. But I've noticed that if you say any kind of three-syllable word in that general direction, she kind of turns on. So it's a little shady. And then B, you like someone says computer, blah blah blah, and the computer's usually like, I'm sorry, I don't know that yet. Or she'll start like spouting off some random fact. It's pretty hilarious.
wow.
And
Alright.
I love for role playing too. If you have a person that can't make it all the time and you want to do video chats with the person, totally get a Google Home because like the mics auto adjust and you can do phone calls on them now. It is so cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it.
Alright, let's move on now to the next question, which is kind of the total opposite we've been talking about so far. What are the habits which someone who's jamming should just flat out avoid? What are some of the worst habits that one should just never do?
um, Letting other people's opinions of your story get to you. Like you're creative. Like you're doing this. You're taking the time to run a game. If they can bitch and nag about it, then they can run their own game. Like it's one thing for them to give you constructive criticism and to say, "Oh, I loved it," and like to be like, "Hey, can I do this?" or to work with you on developing a story about their character. That's amazing. But if they're like, "Oh, well, I don't like this," or if you have like a really negative player that after like 3 or 4 sessions it just keeps bringing you down, maybe talk to that person and be like, "Hey, you need to either change your attitude or start your own party," because sometimes people don't connect, and I
Yeah,
think like a good a beginner DM mistake is to try to make friends with everyone. Like, no, this is a stressful situation. You're learning a skill that's very hard. Like, you should have a very nurturing and kind environment to do this too. Like, if you're doing it in public or if you're doing it with like some people you kind of know, like make sure it's people that you do know and that do respect you and that like you, because you should like all your players, and like you should never just be all welcoming. Like this is not Burger King. They cannot have it their way. This is your game. Don't let people walk over your game. It's like you work hard on this. This is your story. Own it.
yeah. Um, I think also another thing that you shouldn't do ever is avoid any conflict whatsoever between players. If there is like you know or you can see that like player A and player B are not getting along just on a personal level, talk to them. Make sure everything is okay. Little
Yeah.
things like that can just make a group explode because A and B is not getting along. C might get along with both of them, but C is not going to have any fun.
Yeah. And never let the party talk you into player versus player combat or like inter party thievery. Like don't stand for that. Like if
No,
you're like, in your beginning, do not stand for that. That's like these are your rules, these are your laws. Like don't let your players tell you how to run your game. And like, if instead of if they're having an issue, talk to them like adults. Be like, hey, what's going on? Like, did you sleep with the orc girl? Or what's going on here? Is there an issue? Like
yeah, and
you know?
I think it gets even more like harder when like especially when people are starting out and they're just playing with friends. just going into that like level of, hey man, I noticed you're not getting along with Jordan. Like, what's up? Is there like something in real life that's getting between you guys? Do we just need to like skip a couple weeks, let that simmer down, and like get back at it? You know, it it does start becoming kind of like a group counselor thing after a bit, especially if your players are like not happy with each other, and then you just probably need to find a different group. That's another thing. Thinking you need to stay with the group that you started with.
You
That
don't.
is, yeah, no, never. I mean, that is probably one of the worst habits a person running a game can have is like trying no matter what, even after years of trying to stick with the same group. I mean, it's like romanticized that, yeah, I've been playing with this group for like the last 20 years. That's ideal. That's cool. Real life, not really.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way at all in any capacity. You know, people change, things change, interest and play levels change.
Schedules change.
Oh yeah, constantly. You know, so you gotta think on your feet with that. And it's definitely a big thing to, you know, you don't. There are hundreds upon hundreds of people who either don't know how to role play and want to role play, or just have not role played in a long time and want to. So don't feel that you're never gonna find a party again. You'll find a party. They're everywhere.
Yeah, and with the invention of like Roll20 and
Mm-hmm.
other virtual tabletops, like this hobby becoming more and more popular amongst like just the average masses, and comic
Yeah,
book stores and gaming stores doing like league nights. There is no way you can't find another group within like 6 months,
yeah,
unless
and the
you're like, huh?
barcades everywhere too. Like I can't like so many bars that just have like that are nerd bars that just have like D&D night signs everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. I keep
3 or 4
forgetting
of
about
them.
this.
Even if you don't need to go to a bar, you don't want to go to the bar. Like you can at least stop at a nerd bar or like a gaming bar, and guaranteed you'll find some adult posters of like groups
Yeah,
or people looking for games all the time. But yeah, Roll20 is great too. They're looking for group community, and then like Facebook groups like Master the Game and that, and then Reddit too. Reddit's always great.
especially master the game.
Definitely.
And gaming with Juice. Don't forget him. He always has good tips. Um, yeah, yeah. Unless you're like living in a small isolated cabin and with no internet, you can find another gaming group nowadays. Um,
Most days.
yeah. I think another bad habit, and I really hate using this term, but this is something that does happen is the GM girlfriend, but
Mm,
it's a little bit more than that. It's you have your like best friend or whatever, the person that you drag along from game to game with because they're like your support basically.
yeah. Your
I,
support blankets are kind of off-putting.
yeah, I think support blanket player is probably the best term because that's like your favorite player. You just need to let go of your support blanket sometimes.
If they're not doing things constructive, or like if they're constantly just derailing things or trying to bring the attention on themselves, then yes, you need to get like either tell the party member to stop bringing that person, or you need to lean on the party for that kind of support as opposed to your support blanket. Because yeah, it can be kind of off-putting. You're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm really focusing on the scene, and all of a sudden, like Dean's girlfriend's like, what's this thingamajig? You're like, that's what we've been fighting over for the last 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. As I said, it's a thing that happens. I've seen it happen. I've been in a group where that has happened, and it's like, or oh god, what's worse is I joined this group and this guy was trying to impress this girl by inviting her to the group and was like bending head over heels to like try to impress her with his GMing skills. It was a little cringy. I'm like, nah, I'm not down for this, guys. I like my 20 minutes of role playing and then listening to you guys. Well, yeah, I like my 20 minutes of role playing, but I don't like listening to you guys for like 2 hours going back and forth about like whatever weird solo adventure you guys are on.
And then, like, another, I'd say, a bad habit is trying to force something to work. Like,
Mm.
no, it'll work itself out. Like, after 2 or 3 sessions, it's just not working, then scrap it. Like, either the party configuration didn't work, or, I was in a party once, and I just did not get along with one of the players, and I just didn't like how he played. Like, I think if you're playing a role playing game, being an antisocial character is bullshit. Like, you can't be antisocial.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you can't be a stand in the back brutish character and expect me to be okay with that. Like, because I won't be. Like, and so I was, it kind of became bittersome because my character would constantly try to encourage that character to do things, and he would just point blank refuse to engage. So that made me kind of surly as a player. So I started to get salty, and it kind of, it led to me being like, yeah, I don't want to host this game at my house anymore.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, once again, you don't have to stick with the group you originally started with.
Yeah, or even like, one that you start. Like, if you start a game and like, a couple sessions in, it's just not working. You're like, oh, that didn't work. Don't be a dick about it. Like, you can do it in private, but you can be like, hey, so I didn't like A or B, but C and D were really cool. So you guys want to come play me over here?
Yeah.
Like,
I
you can move players around. Players are interchangeable.
as long as you're approaching it like an adult. Well, no, even if you approach it like an adult, some people will like get totally offended because that's life. Some people aren't like in that emotionally mature level yet, but you know,
That's one of
as
the things too. Sometimes people click, sometimes they don't.
yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, but as long as you take the high ground and you try to like approach everything like a rational human, I mean, most of the time it will turn out okay for you. And
9 times out
then
of 10.
yeah, and that 1 out of 10, you can tell your future people on some like weird podcast that you're doing. Hey, yeah, I had this person totally like blow up on me because I'm like didn't like them and I told them to their face and yeah.
And then, like, I think another easy, like, it's don't, like, be prepared, but like in kind of a creepy actual bag of holding Mary Poppins kind of be prepared. Like, literally have everything in your DM bag that you could possibly ever imagine you want or need to have. Don't just think that someone's going to bring something. Don't know. They're not going to.
No, never.
Have like sheets, have more pencils, have extra dice, have deodorant. Like you can actually write to Old Spice and ask for like mini deodorants, and they'll send you a bag of little deodorants. They will. I've done it before. Like, you could totally write to them. It's like, hey, I need some like promo deodorants. Can you send me some of those, please? Because I have nerds that have BO that don't buy deodorant, and like that's actually a legit thing that people complain about when you go to public places.
Yeah,
So as a DM, be like, here, go use this. Like, because like,
yeah. I've been to plenty of like comic shops and game shops. They actually have rules posted on
mm-hmm,
the wall. Number one rule: if you
hygiene.
yeah, hygiene. If you don't have hygiene and you're asked to leave by anyone, just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, and personally, I probably would not game in a place that didn't have like those kind of rules just like listed.
Oh yeah. Play places you're comfortable too. Don't bend and play to places you're not comfortable. If you don't want to play at someone's house, don't play at someone's house.
Yeah, if you
Or play at the library, play at the college, play.
yeah, I asked the like local coffee shop, hey, I have this like group that comes in from like 9 until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is it cool if I like take over your table? I did that for a few years. we ended up actually getting an audience, which was odd, but you know.
Right, it's like little soap operas. People follow it.
Oh yeah, totally. That's why Critical Role and other D&D podcasts work, especially Tales of Swordfall. I'm totally plugging my own thing in the middle of this. Um,
Yeah,
um,
but I want to do that with my next storylines. I want to have, it's not live presentation, but I definitely want to record it and then put it out there.
oh yeah, like I think doing a whole roundtable conversation with other people who record or stream, that would be an interesting thing because I'm still learning personally, and I think there's a lot of people who want to like do that because um, it's one way of avoiding actually taking notes, but reviewing of what you have. So that's another bad habit, not taking notes while you are actually
Oh yeah,
running a
no,
game.
definitely take DM notes. Like every single day, you should take at least some scribble of a note of
Yeah,
what happened. Like, there should be dates too. Keep dates. Put dates in your DM book. Like get a spiral notebook that you only put your campaign notes in, and constantly date that whenever you do a new session. Then you'll know when what happened, even if it's squiggly bird, hexagon, gargle neck, or whatever. Like if it's some weird list of things, you at least know that happened on that day. Very
yeah.
important.
One thing I found pretty handy is recorders. Like digital recorders are really cheap nowadays, like
Oh yeah.
$40. And if you have that money, buy a digital recorder, tape your sessions, replay them like 15 minutes at a time, and take notes. And by the time you play like the next week or in 2 weeks, you'll have all your notes. You'll be like refreshed on what's happening, especially if you're like a real like person who picks a lot up from like audio. It really helps.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Like,
yeah.
digital tools too. Like, find an app that works for you. Or like I forget the guy's name. The guy who makes the fifth edition character sheet app for Android and with the
Oh.
blue with the green D20. I love that dude's app.
Oh
It's the
yeah, I
greatest.
actually have that on my phone.
Yeah, like he has a series. He has a green one that's for players. He has a blue one that's for dungeon masters, and then he has an orange one that's for world builders.
I have not gotten the World Builder one yet, but I might have to
Yeah,
check that.
that one's super cool. It lets you build up your own templates for players to use in the green one. So like you can make your own races and classes and everything in the character creator. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Like use digital tools. Like there are literally every app store is full of D&D and role playing apps now. Like dice rollers and generators and NPCs and campaign note makers, all sorts of things. There's
Yeah.
like 20. Like if you're more of a nerd and you love doing websites and managing it like that, then go with those. If you love audio, then audio recordings, you can get a cheap microphone or
Yeah, that's what I have right now is a nice cheap microphone, and it really works. It has like a little like spit guard, so I can talk directly into it if I need to. Like I would not recommend. Well, personally, I don't recommend anything that's like over $50 because I try to do things on the cheap because I'm already spending like 50 to $60 on books or whatever when new books come out, and this can be a very expensive hobby if you allow it to. But just like any other like tabletop game.
definitely like any hobby.
Yep.
You don't have any money for it.
Oops, I am dropping things.
Failed your reflex check. But yeah, no, like I said, I use a wide variety of just different tools, but I'm a huge note taker. Like I have legal pads everywhere. Little ones, big ones. Like you can go to the dollar store and get so many amazing stationery sets.
Oh, and little like little bobs and tokens and stuff. I mean,
Oh
dollar
yeah.
stores can be your friends when you're a GM. Actually, that brings us to like the very last question. Actually, tips tips for new GMs. Yeah, we've already gone through some, like using digital tools, dollar stores for like just extra bibs and bobs. Um,
Like, like the creepy doomsday preppers have their bug out bags. Like, have your DM bag. Like, have a bag, or if you don't have a bag, go out to a thrift store and buy a bag, like a messenger satchel, or some sort of game cart, a collapsible crate. Something
yeah.
cheap and inexpensive that you can stuff a whole bunch of books in and character sheets, and then go to the Dollar Tree or some dollar store and get like one of those big accordion, like fold out, like page organizers, so you can just keep your character sheets and your notes and stuff, and like build your own little set. Like have your dice and your pens and your pencils, and
Oh
so
yeah.
you'll never have to worry about where all your stuff is. Like make sure that like you build everything from the ground up. It's your own little empire as it is. So like have your kit, have your rituals, have your routines. Always prep before sessions.
Oh
Have
yeah.
like at least a half an hour or like an hour of alone time for yourself to prep for a session. Like, make a playlist that gets you in the mood. Like, practice voices, talk to yourself, like work out the timeline. Like you can never be prepared enough to just like in the basic aspects of going over your storyline. Just be like, hey, get your flow,
Yeah.
get your mindset.
Get hyped. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I always try to make sure I'm like excited to play the next game, no matter what. Even if like I know all my players' characters are gonna die, I just get hyped for it. I'm just like, yeah, we can do this. We'll make it awesome. I basically strive to make getting that mindset that every session will be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, you have
that's what
to
I
keep that
try.
positivity.
Hmm?
You really do. You have to keep that positivity. You have to keep that like that optimism at all the times because it helps. It transfers to everyone else. It really reflects on the storytelling.
Yeah,
Just we're all gonna have a great time, and
yeah,
then ride the adrenaline from after a session. Like once your party goes home, transcribe your notes. Like plan what's gonna happen next week a little bit. If you're riding a really cool story high after your last session ends, then like keep going inside of your head. Plan it out a little bit so you don't forget. Write stuff down because you will forget if you're like, oh, no, I'll remember that later. Write it down. Like you will not regret that at the end of the session.
yeah. So my Sunday game I run with my wife as one of the players, and on our ride home, I'm just like, oh my god, that was awesome, blah blah blah. And she's like, uh huh. And then I realized I can't tell her any of my like plans because just like I trust her to like keep like meta knowledge and stuff like close to her chest, but it's still a very big tendency for me to be like, no, I can't tell her anything. I
I've
also
totally been there.
Yeah, also like finding a person who's outside the game who's willing to listen to you just like rant about a game for like 20 minutes. That's always good
Your
to have.
your nerdiest friend who doesn't play with you, like just totally vent to them because it really does help.
Yeah. Hey, I was thinking about putting a vampire lord in my game and doing this and
What
this
kind
and
of
this. Yeah.
make sure they're a good receptacle though. They actually bounce stuff back to you. Like make sure that they're a nerdy friend and that they will because that does having that outsider opinion to be like, no, that's cool. What kind of vampire? Like a creepy Nosferatu vampire, or are we talking like a Torador? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's great if they speak your lingo too. But if not, it's still kind of cool. If they just like Game of Thrones and they're kind of entranced by your story, then that's nice too. But
Yeah,
find a 30.
yeah, finding that third party who you can just bounce ideas off of. Yeah, that's so nice.
I
Going
like the
back
third
to
shift.
the like the DMK, yeah, like I'm a pretty nomadic GM. I travel a lot for games. I don't actually host in my house because my house is small and not
It
very
happens.
many rooms for guests. So when I'm playing my Sunday game, I have like three players handbooks. One is like mine, one is an extra, and one is my wife's. Um, Monster manual. I have what Tome of Beasts, Volo's Guide, um, the DMG, and the actual monster manual. That's like 8 books right there. And I got got to REI on a like one of the sale days or whatever, and bought a pack, and that helps a lot. Um, and then I have like 2 tote bags. Uh, One has a binder full of like homebrew rules. That's another tip. If you do homebrew rules, make sure you write them down and everybody can see them.
Oh yes.
Like making any kind of rule change, make sure that you write them down. Make sure that you stick with them. That's a real big thing. And that after you make that ruling that deviates, have it so if there's any argument about it in the future, you can just whip out that binder and be like, right here, this is how I
Yeah.
ruled it the last time.
My
That's how.
homebrew unit library on Google Docs is now 57 pages long. So
Wow.
it just you keep adding to it, and then eventually you can just keep sharing it with people.
Yeah,
Oh, Control F.
I can almost not hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was working on my library.
Yeah.
Well, you start looking at it, and you're like, oh yeah, I got that new GM screen, and then I got this. And I sort of think GM screens, like they have some really cool, like the plastic hollow ones where you can put your own sheets in. Love those. Those are awesome because you can always print out your own little stack crib sheets.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, then get your any of the DM screens, even the out of print ones, like the old 3.5 editions. If you play 3.5, then find those. If you see them in the store, get them because they're useful.
Or even duct taping folders together and using paper clips to put your like cheat sheets on. I've seen that. It's a little like low tech and
if you're flat broke and not in a rush, Wish has tons of D&D stuff for dirt cheap. Like you can get dice for you can get a pound of dice on Wish for $5.
really.
Yeah, like you can get so many cheap dice sets on Wish. You can get the really expensive metal sets. You can get them for like $10.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah.
look on Wish. Another tip.
Yeah,
Actually, I'll have to keep that one in mind too because yeah, being a broke D&D player, I've been that for most of my life.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Unless of course you're actually housed somewhere by like a gaming store, then buy stuff from them. Just
oh
because
yeah.
it's not like don't ever if you're running a game at a place because it's like I hate this thing my biggest flip flop. Don't endorse piracy or tell people to buy books in a game store, especially if you're the DM or like you're supposed to be friends with the owner. That's just not cool.
No.
Like a lot of people went into like the work and production of making the book alone, and it's this person's livelihood that's allowing you to play in their place for free. So buy your stuff from them.
Yeah.
Buy the D&D playing part or the adventure packs. Buy your DM screens, buy your stuff. If you can't afford to buy your books from them, I'm sure they'll understand. Buy it from Amazon. I get that. But buy everything else from your supplier, like your small game stores.
Yeah.
Only your small stores.
If they're allowing you to play in this space, whenever you can, just buy from them. I mean, there are too many like gaming shops disappearing off the face of this earth already. I mean,
And compel your party. Do not let your party bring outside food or soda in.
yeah,
If they sell food, soda, don't let them do that. That's rude.
yeah. Like when I was in the coffee shop that I was playing in, I tell everyone, hey guys, we at least need to like earn our keep, buy a drink, buy
Mm-hmm.
like a donut, whatever. You know, the staff loved us anyways, but we're like, yeah, we're gonna like buy things and sit here for like
Don't
4 or
outstay.
5 hours.
No one likes boorish Klingons playing D&D in their establishment. Who's just eating them and consuming them dry, but not really because they're not actually eating anything.
Yeah. And if you are in somebody else's space that's allowing you to be there, treat it better than your house.
Yeah, and if you're a player who can't afford to buy stuff, that's play there, but be nice. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, don't leave stuff behind. Clean up after other piggy people if they are dirty and messy. You shouldn't have to, but like, don't. It's like coming up to other players. Like, don't think that you have to pay places to do that. But
Yeah, like,
that horrible negative. But it's just like like if you can afford to buy a coffee, then do it. But like and then on the other hand, like if you have someone in your party that can support someone else and buy soda, be like, hey, can you maybe talk to that person too? Like we were talking about how you're pretty much the referee between your players' characters and your players as players.
yep.
Like notice that if there's a 17-year-old scrappy kid who just is happy to be there and stuff, buy him a soda now and then. Like help new players and like people who are coming to you for refuge. Because a lot of people come to D&D because they could be unhappy with something else in their life. So it's really important to have a welcoming environment too. So no matter what, I say that is a big thing, is to constantly have a welcoming environment. Like make your environment completely welcoming. And, like we said, if you don't like them, that can happen. But it doesn't give you the right to be rude to anybody or tell anyone they don't have the right to play if you're playing in public.
And I'm gonna say this, and this is the last thing, and this is gonna be like, it's been a kind of controversial thing lately, but don't gatekeep just because someone's different, like
Yeah.
race, sexuality, sex. Let them play.
Yeah.
Just let them play.
Like they're gonna play a mythological creature and you're upset that they're different than you. What's
Yeah.
wrong with you? Like we're all here to have fun.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing.
we are playing a game. We are having fun. And if somehow your fun is like being all gross and gatekeepy, you might want to find a different hobby.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Or do it in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna gatekeep, you might as well like have actual gates. If you're gaming in public, in a public place, expect everyone. And if you're not down for that, yeah, go away, please.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
on that note, yeah, it's been about an hour, so I'm gonna call this a good chat. It was nice meeting you. It was awesome hearing your opinions.
Nice meeting
Um,
you, Paul. Great.
yeah, how about you remind everyone who you are, what you do on the internet, and if we can follow you on social media, where to follow you.
Again, I am Drake. I am the creative writer and founder of Adventure on Demand. We're adventureondemand.com, and I forget our Facebook, Adventure on Demand RPG on Facebook. And we do custom tabletop campaigns and campaign services and a whole bunch of stuff. Our website's down at the exact moment because I'm slowly building it by myself. So, but it's coming up. It'll be up by the end of the month because I have a conference I'm going to in the last week of February, and it needs to be up. So, but Adventure on Demand. I'm Drake. I said I try to stay active on Master the Game now. So if you ever ask me any questions, I'll probably pop up and give some advice or 2 cents.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're wondering what Master of the Game is, it's a Facebook group where a lot of players, especially people who run games, come together, talk about just role playing games, running them, and it's run by a guy named Juice. He's an awesome dude. If you follow him on anything, I think you can just find him on Twitter at Gaming with Juice, Juce. He's a pretty cool guy. Shout out to him. And I'm Paul. If you're listening to this is my YouTube channel. And well, follow, like, subscribe, ring that bell, all that stuff. If you want to follow my personal Twitter, which I mainly tweet about puppies and D&D and other role-playing games, I'm at Paul, Paul underscore Gerrish, Gerrish. And also, if you want to follow stuff that's just pertaining to Tales of Swordfall, It's at SwordFall, letters D in D. Yeah, that's it for tonight. Uh, Thanks for joining me, Drake. It's, as I
Thank
said,
you, Paul.
it's awesome.
Yeah,
Hopefully, in future installments of this, we can have you back on. Um,
definitely.
yeah. Let's just double check. Yep. No, nothing in the chat to ask us. So, I think this is a successful farewell. So, good night, everyone.
Good night.